Hey guys, welcome to part 4 of this How to Make Future Bass tutorial course on Sonic Academy. I'm Echo Soundworks, and in this video, we're going to be expounding on the chord theory, the music theory that we've been discussing in the last video, and talk about inversions. So the last section of the tutorial course, we talked about how important minor 7th chords are to future bass. If you don't use them, your track's not going to sound like future bass. For instance, let's expand on that right now that you guys probably took a break or so, or maybe you watched the video, dabbled around on your keyboard, and you're getting the idea of 7th and 9th chords. Here's this same drum groove that we used. Let me actually be inside of Logic when I play it. Okay, so there's the drum. Now let's work with this chord progression right here. We're gonna go A minor to E minor to F. Let's try that, but let's just do it with the root triads. You know, the triads that we talked about at the beginning of the last video. Okay, that doesn't sound like future bass. It sounds like really slow pop or even, I guess, hip hop. But what happens if we add in the 7th chords, the 7th to those chords? So say A minor 7th, or A minor 7, in root position, down to E minor 7, up to F major 7. Let's try that with the drums. Let me actually count in here. 2, 3, 4. I messed up there, but you guys get the idea. That sounds like future bass, right? That has that future bass element. Now let me play it with a synth. Okay, so count in here. 2, 3. All right, I played tried to get a little lead in there at the top, but you get the idea. That sounds like future bass, right? And I'm just posting up on a minor 7th chord at first, and it's really easy to keep this hand shape. It's pinky, middle finger. For my triad, what I'm doing pinky, middle finger, and then the index finger for the note. So pinky, middle, index. And then I'm doing my thumb up top for the minor. And I'm literally keeping that same shape everywhere I go. Right, and I could change that chord progression up. We could go. All right, so I'm literally just posting up on that position. Learn that position. Because if you're not great at playing keys or not great at playing the piano, just having a 7th chord, being able to play it's going to make it a lot easier. And it's going to make you be able to make the decision of, oh, this is a dope chord progression. Because remember, when we just did the minor chords, that doesn't have the future bass sound that we all know and love. So 7th chords are your best friend. We can even do the 9th chords. So let's do a 7th chord. And maybe try this E add 9. So this one's going to get more complicated. All right, so that doesn't sound particularly good, so we gotta find a way to get the 9th chords in, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Just doing 9th chords are a little bit weirder to get in there. They fit a little bit better if your melody has an element of it. So let's talk about inversions now, because everything I was playing with this, and this actually sounds pretty good, the A minor 7. Right, that actually sounds like future bass, but you can make it sound even better by using what's called an inversion. Now, I'm not going to give you guys the really music theory definition of inversions, because I'm not about that life. I actually always hated how music theory was taught. I thought it was taught in too sterile of a way. So I like to look at this with how most of you guys are going to be applying it to your music, and that's inside of a DAW, unless some of you crazy cats out there are recording to analog. Now, what we have is with any chord that it has a like father or parent position. Some people call it parent or father position. And that's literally just the root position of the triad. And what that means is if you're playing a C major triad, the C is on bottom. It's the lowest pitch. So let's go back to the piano. So see how my C right here is the lowest note? That's the lowest frequency in this scale, or in this chord. Now, if I put, what happens when I put, let's say if I move these notes around, because if you're absolutely brand new to music, this will really help. Now, let's say you don't know what a chord inversion is. These notes, they don't have to be played in this order to make a C chord, okay? The easiest way to describe this is when you play a guitar C major chord, the notes are not in this order. That's what makes a guitar sound more like a guitar. And that's one of the hard parts about getting a guitar sound or a guitar part played on a keyboard in your DAW to sound like a real guitar. It's because the voicing is different of a guitar, because the strings and the tunings are different than that of a piano. Now, with that being said, so these notes, C, E, and G, they don't have to be in this order to make a C major chord. I could literally have one in each octave. So let's do that right now. I'm going to play a C1. I'm going to play an E2. It's a stretch for me. And then I'm going to play a G above it. That's a C. That's a C major triad. It's just really spaced out. Okay, now let's go back to this one. I could put, what happens when I put this C up here on this top C an octave above it? Okay, that's still a C, but you can see that my chord now is E, G, C, but that's still a C chord. It's not an E chord. So a lot of people think and make the mistake that just because it's the bottom note or the note that's on the bottom of the chord, that is the actual chord, or what it's called, or what is properly called the tonic or root note of that chord. Not necessarily so. So here's a C major triad. Let's invert the hell out of this. Let's go E, G, C. That's still a C major, okay? Now let's take the G under it and put that on there. And then let's put the main C on there. So now we have G on the bottom of our C. Right? And this is how you start to make those really cool, crazy future bass chords, is inverting stuff, moving notes around in your chords. So let's go back to this minor chord example. So this is all in root position, but let's take this, let's do C. Let's take this, and what we're going to do here is we're going to draw this in the piano editor. So let's say you don't know how to make minor 7th chords, major 7th chords. I'll show you how to do that, and then we're going to tack on the 7th chord in the MIDI editor, the piano roll, because we all have that capability in every DAW, and then we're going to start to invert this stuff. So let me record this real quick. All right, so let me edit that real quick because I messed up. I was playing with my left hand. Like I said, I'm not the greatest key player in the world, and that's okay, because every day, if you just try to get a little bit better, you can. I sleep easy knowing if I just try to get a little bit better. So here we have. All right, so let me edit these to all be the same length, and I'm holding down Option and Shift to do that in Logic. Okay, and I want these to stop playing when that snare hits. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That's just a tenet of future bass. All right, so let's adjust the length of those. And we'll make this one nice and long. Okay, so we have a chord progression, and this is just minor chords in root position. Okay, now if you're an FL Studio user, you have that cool way of just drawing things into the scale here, which is really nice. Now I have the brush tool, and I can set this to a scale. So if we set this to A minor, for instance, now the brush, anything I do with the brush, it will only let me do in the A minor scale. Right, so if we look at these notes, there shouldn't be anything on black keys, and there isn't. So let's edit, undo that. So in Logic, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the brush, and what I'm gonna do is just, so we can, that's one way to make weird inversions, but so you can just start adding notes. And if I try to put it on the black key, it won't let me. Okay, what I just made a dope future bass chord. Not having a single knowledge or know-how of what I do is I'm literally just guessing. Okay, now let's talk about actually the proper way to actually make, well, not the proper, but if you want to actually get into the music theory, let's turn these into seventh chords. So now remember, if we talk about here, this is our root note, here's our third, and here's our fifth, right? Which is seven steps away, 7.5 steps away from our tonic. If we go 3 steps up from that, 1, 2, 3, this note right here should be right there. That should be a seventh chord, and it is. Okay, so we just made a minor seventh. Okay, so I just drew that out to be the same length on those chords. Now we can do the same thing with the other notes as well. So we're gonna highlight these and go 1, 2, 3. Okay, same with these. Let's take these top 2 notes, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, I did that one a little bit wrong. What happened? Well, remember, this one is a major chord, so we need to go a little bit different there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 away from the major chords. All right, so now we're starting to create this kind of future bass chord progression. Well, let's start to invert some stuff, shall we? So what we can do here is, let's take this E, let's put it up there. And let's keep that E right there, but let's take this C. Actually, let's try putting the E on the bottom. Okay, that sounded weird, right? Well, what happened? Well, you don't want to get your tonic too out of whack. It's better to use that to keep the tonic in line with your bass. Sometimes it's cool to change that up, but for the most part, you want to be able to hear the tonic of the note. So let's try to get this note. Let's see what this is right here. This is an E, and this is a G3. Okay, so we have an E right here, and we have a C. Let's try to get this C up here. Okay. And let's get an A right there. So now we have an A on the bottom, and if we mute our tonic, which would probably go to the bass, the chord would be E, G, A, and the C4. So it's inverted, and it's gonna sound really cool to go even maybe from an inverted A minor 7th chord to a tonic A minor 7th. Let's keep this high note up there. Right, so playing with the inversions is just moving the notes around in your key that you want to try to make. So let's go back to that brush idea. I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to hit the brush tool. Now this is a Logic specific only hack, but if you use FL Studio, I know you guys have something that I lust over. You can just set the key to your, in your piano editor, and it'll gray out the notes that aren't in that key or in that scale. You can do a similar thing in Live. So if you're unfamiliar with how to do that, just look that up, because I don't use Live. I wish I did, guys, because I get requests for that all the time. But just look it up. I know it's possible. You can, I think it's called like scale restrict or something like that. So let's draw in some notes here to make this chord. Let's to make this chord thicker. Because having a lot of notes in your chords in future bass is really helpful. What note is this? This is an F. Let's get that F out of there. All right, so that sounds pretty cool. Let's get the A way under it. Okay, so I really like how that sounds. And let's get out of the piano roll for now. Let's take this down to that synth sound that we'd used in Massive. You get the idea. We have these really cool minor chords. Let's fill in the other notes here in the piano roll with the other chords. So let's extend this. This is the tonic. All right, that's a little bit too low. So let's see if we can get this another note under this, like the B, which is creating an inverted chord. So that might not work, so let's just delete that for now because that's going to sound a little bit weird. But let's try to get these top two notes in. So we have a G there, so we should have a G there. So let's take these two notes right there, and let's listen to this. All right, so we have huge chord stacks, right? And a big element of getting these chord stacks to have that future bass sound is layering, and we're going to talk about that later in the tutorial course. But basically what you want to do with your layers is you want certain synths to be only using certain notes of your really big chords. Now these chords are much different from like a progressive chord. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes making up the first two chords, which in a progressive track, tropical house track, any type of really EDM track, you're not going to have that thick of a chord. And that's what makes future bass have its really lush, kind of sexy, sleek sound, is getting those minor sevenths in. Even the poppier sounding future bass, which is probably what I'm going to make for this tutorial course, is not super, it still has the minor sevenths. For instance, let's say I wanted to do a chord progression and I wanted to do like a minor seventh chord. Here's a G minor seventh, but the way I'm playing it, I'm playing G, D, F, G, B flat, D. I'm playing a really weird inversion on this to give it its sound. Now that's what's going to help you get that really cool lush feel, and that's just something you gotta play around with. When I'm starting a future bass track, I've only done I think 3 of them. It really just depends. I just play around with it until I get something that sticks, something that sounds cool. But there's the general gist, guys, of using your inversions, using your sevenths, ninths, even 11ths and suspended chords to get a future bass sound. I'll see you guys in the next video.
If you like this course, why not head over to sonicacademy.com, where we have hundreds of complete track builds in every genre imaginable, including all the project files and samples. You'll also find tutorials on plugins and synths, mixing and mastering, over 250 tech tips, artist interviews, along with our award-winning plugins, samples and preset packs.